However, you can drag it all the way to the right, and you'll see that now the darker blue is much more dominant than the pink. And you can also drag it to the left, and then the pink becomes much more dominant. But I'm just going to position this in the middle. So again, we can type 50% and it puts that back in the middle. And then we can drag the pink into the middle. Go into the swatches palette, we'll select the red, and we're going to introduce another color. So drag that, hover over the gradient icon, drop it on the end there. Adjust the angle to 45. And there we go, we've created our gradient. And what we can actually do is with that shape selected in the swatches palette, we can create a new swatch and it will be called New Gradient Swatch. And we can double click that and we can give this a name. Awesome Gradient. And you can adjust a few of the settings here, some of the different colors that make up that gradient. And the good thing about having the gradient as a swatch is you can quickly, easily access it, use it, and modify any instance of it in the document. And there we go, that's how we create gradients in Adobe InDesign. As always guys, please feel free to leave any questions or comments below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, take care, and I'll see you next time.
So I just created this dope website with Wix. Let me show you how I did it. First up, go to Wix.com. Now this is where the magic happens. You're gonna add an image and some text. Oh, that's nice. First what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the font. Wait a minute, Frank, Brandon, David, who are these guys? You know, one day I'm gonna create Feral font. You guys know I got a lot of videos. Here, I've uploaded them all. And with a subscription, you guys can check out my top secret material.
Hey, yo, I'm killing it in this high quality.
See, I'm a sharing kind of guy. So here's my Instagram, instant access. I look good, what? Man, I know how hard it is to make people stand up and listen, but with a site like this, you're already there. Go to Wix.com and create your stunning website today. That's all you got to do. It ain't hard. You ain't doing nothing. Stop eating chips.
If you write anything on your computer, you need to get Grammarly.
I write pretty much all day, every day, and Grammarly makes my writing better.
As a student, I like that it's free.
It actually is correcting everything as I'm writing it.
Grammar errors, spelling errors, and even helps me find the right words to use so I can say what I want to say.
It catches all those embarrassing little mistakes before I hit send.
I downloaded Grammarly around my freshman year because I was just horrible at typing.
Grammarly is like my secret weapon for writing papers.
It's the perfect tool for your resume. You know, you don't want any errors when it's your first impression.
I use Grammarly for important emails, social media posts, which there are a lot of.
I've used every tool out there, and Grammarly is by far the best for improving your writing.
Grammarly is making me a better writer, and it's free.
I would recommend Grammarly if you're a student.
My family.
My peers, my colleagues.
It's like having your own personal proofreader for free.
Download Grammarly for free at Grammarly.com.
Hello there, you're watching Datsky, the place to be to develop your creative skills. In this tutorial, we're going to be going through 10 tips for beginners in Adobe InDesign. So in InDesign, when we use the Type tool to left click and draw a text box and fill this with some text, what can often occur as we adjust the size of this is that we get this auto hyphenation. Now this is where words cannot fit within the text box, so it breaks them up into two and connects them with a hyphen. Now sometimes we want that, sometimes we don't. Now the way we can remove that easily is select the text tool and press Command or Control A inside the text box to select everything. and then go up to Window, down to Type and Tables, and select Paragraph, and you'll see it will open up the Paragraph panel, and at the very bottom there's an option called Hyphenate. Simply uncheck that and your text will no longer be auto hyphenated. So oftentimes in InDesign we want to change the case of our text. So if I type in some text here, and we can increase the size of this text. And I'm just going to create a few copies of this by holding Alt and Shift and dragging down. So if we select the first one, and with the Type tool we'll just drag over the text to make a selection and go to Type, down to Change Case, and we can change this to uppercase. We could change the next one to lowercase. Now this one here is already title case, where it capitalizes the first letter on every word. But then the last one, we have sentence case, where it only capitalizes the first letter on the first word. Now in InDesign, when we're working with text, what we can do is we can use the Type tool to select a portion of text, and we can change various properties. Now some of those may include stroke color, so we could change this to blue. However, this is using the formatting effects text selection. We can change this to formatting effects container as well. So if I were to select this text here, just by clicking on it with the main selection tool rather than the Type tool, if I then go and apply a color, it applies it to this bounding box, also known as a container. So you can switch between the two here, and you can see that the respective fills and stroke change as well. So if I want to change the text color, I can switch over to Formatting Effects Text, and the shortcut for that is J on the keyboard, and then I can make the appropriate selection of a color or any other styling option. It's just making sure that you've got the container or the text selected as necessary. Okay, so in InDesign you may want to sometimes add drop shadows. So if we draw a rectangle and we'll give this a color, we can add a drop shadow by going up to Object, down to Effects, and we get a whole bunch of different effects. Now these are very similar to the blending options that you'll find in Photoshop, and we can click drop shadow and we get a very similar, albeit simplified, menu. And we can tick various options, and we can choose whether this applies to the object, the stroke, or the fill, and in some cases the text. And I'll just turn on the preview box so you can see what I'm doing. Try and move this out the way. So we can adjust the distance here. That's the distance that the shadow is from the shape. We can change the angle. We can even use the X and Y offset as well. So we can offset it along the horizontal X axis or the vertical Y axis. We can adjust the size. So this is how much the shadow will blur. We can adjust the spread. So it just makes it a little bit more precise and harder around the edges. And we can even add some noise to our shadow if we want. And we can click OK. And then just go back up to Object, Effects, and Drop Shadow if we want to go and make any further changes at a later date. So in InDesign it is possible to create tables, and we can do this by using the Type tool to define a text area and then go to Table, Insert Table, and we can specify the number of rows. So we could have 3 columns and 6 rows. Click OK and it creates that table. And now we can select all of the different cells with the Type tool by dragging over and go to Table, and then we go to Table Options and we get a few different options here. So we could click Table Setup and we get lots of different tabs that we can start adjusting, but we can also go to Cell Options and we can choose the format for the contents of those cells. So we could define the strokes in the fills, so we could select certain parts. And we could change the color, so our table now becomes blue with a thicker stroke. And we could change the style of the stroke as well, so we could go for something like a dashed line. And there's lots of different properties in there that you can use to fully customize your table, and we can then click with the type tool and then start typing within it. Now this is a really quick tip when you're working in InDesign. If you've defined your margins for your document, your bleed, and a slug area as well, what you can do is you can very quickly switch between this view here, which shows you a final trimmed version of your document against a grey workspace. You can switch between that by pressing W on the keyboard, and you can see it toggles down here as well if you'd like to do it manually or preview a certain view. So now we can press W, we can see our margins, which are helpful for aligning things. We can see our bleed marked by the red line here. And we've also got our slug area on the right. So we can quickly switch between those. And if you'd like to edit any of those properties, you go to File, Document Setup, and it will bring up this dialog box similar to what you see when you first create your document. And then you can make any changes here as you need to. Or if you need to change the margins,